They say life hits you hardest when you least expect it. Personally, I thought I'd be prepared for anything. After all, I survived my parents' divorce, 2 layoffs, and one disastrous karaoke night where my best friend, Ryan, sang Total Eclipse of the Heart directly into my ear. But nothing could have prepared me for finding out my girlfriend might have a secret kid. It started innocently enough. It was a Wednesday evening, and Emily was in the kitchen humming something vaguely annoying while making pasta. I was on the couch, scrolling aimlessly on my phone and mentally debating whether I should ask for seconds or just eat the garlic bread when I noticed her phone buzz on the coffee table. "Hey, babe, your phone's going off," I called out. No response. Just more humming. I glanced at the screen, intending to be helpful. And that's when I saw it. A message from an unknown number. "She asked about you today. Thought you'd want to know." Attached was a photo of a little girl, maybe 5 years old, grinning with a gap-toothed smile and holding a teddy bear. I froze. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but let's be real, there's only so many ways to interpret "she asked about you" paired with a picture of a child. Either Emily was running a very weird daycare service or, no. There was no second option that didn't make my stomach drop. "Hey, Em," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I held up her phone. "You've got a message." She finally looked up, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Oh, just read it for me." "It's probably spam." "Oh, it wasn't spam. Spam doesn't have children in it." I don't think it's spam," I said, my voice going up an octave. Who's this kid?" Her smile faltered, just for a second. It was quick, blink and you miss it quick, but I saw it. And in that instant, I knew I'd just stepped on a metaphorical landmine. "Oh, that's nothing," she said, grabbing her phone from my hand a little too quickly. "Just a friend's kid. You know, people send me pictures sometimes." "People send you pictures of their children, asking about you?" I raised an eyebrow, trying to sound casual but probably coming off like a bad detective in a low-budget cop show. Emily laughed, the kind of laugh that's meant to be dismissive but lands somewhere closer to nervous. "Yeah, it's complicated. Don't worry about it." Now, normally, I'd let things slide. I'm not the prying type. But something about her tone, the way she avoided my eyes, the tight grip she had on her phone, set off every alarm bell in my head. "Complicated, huh?" I said, crossing my arms. "So, just out of curiosity, how many other people are sending you pictures of kids I don't know about?" "Alex, come on," she said, rolling her eyes like I'd just asked her if the earth was flat. "You're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "Because this seems like the kind of thing a guy should know about, Emily. Are you secretly a kindergarten teacher? A long-lost nanny? Should I be buying crayons in bulk now?" Her jaw tightened. "It's nothing, okay? Drop it." And with that, she walked back to the stove, stirring the sauce like it was the most important thing in the world. I stood there, watching her, feeling a strange mix of disbelief and frustration. This wasn't just nothing. Nothing doesn't come with a picture of a kid and a cryptic message. Nothing doesn't make your girlfriend's hands tremble as she grips her phone like it's a lifeline. For the first time since we'd started dating, I felt like I didn't really know her. And that, I think, scared me more than anything. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the pasta, it was actually pretty good, even if Emily pretended nothing was wrong while we ate. But that picture? That message? They were burned into my brain like a bad tattoo. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to piece it all together. Who was the little girl? What did "she asked about you" mean? And why did Emily act like I'd asked her to explain quantum physics when I brought it up? At some point, Emily rolled over, resting her arm across my chest. Normally, that would have been comforting. But tonight, it felt heavy. Like there was a wall between us, and I was suddenly very aware of it. The next day, I decided to do something I never thought I'd do: snoop. Now, Don't get me wrong, I'm not a dig through her phone kind of guy. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and this? This felt pretty damn desperate. Emily was in the shower, singing some pop song I couldn't place, when I saw her phone on the nightstand. Unlocked. Wide open. Do I really want to do this? I hesitated, my hand hovering over the screen. But then I thought about that little girl's smile, the message, the way Emily had brushed it off like it was no big deal. And that's when I did it. I opened her messages. At first, there was nothing suspicious. A bunch of texts from coworkers, a group chat with her friends, mostly memes and wine emojis, and one particularly long conversation with her mom about a recipe. But then I saw it, the same number from last night. The thread was short. A few scattered messages, mostly vague. Do you think she should know? You promised you'd tell him eventually. She's asking more questions. And then, right there at the bottom, was the photo I'd already seen. My hands started shaking as I scrolled back up, looking for some kind of clue. There wasn't a name attached to the number, just the initials JL. Whoever they were, they clearly knew Emily, and they knew something I didn't. I was about to screenshot the messages when I heard the water shut off. Shit. I quickly locked the phone and shoved it back on the nightstand, trying to act casual as Emily walked into the room, a towel wrapped around her. "Morning," she said, smiling at me like nothing was wrong. "Morning," I replied, my voice a little too high-pitched. She tilted her head, giving me a curious look. "You okay? You look jumpy." "Me? Jumpy? No. Just excited for coffee," I said, scrambling out of bed and practically running to the kitchen. The rest of the day was torture. I couldn't stop thinking about those messages. Who is JL? What does he know? And most importantly, why hasn't she told me? I tried to focus on work, but even my boss noticed I was distracted. "Alex, you've been staring at that screen for 20 minutes. Are you coding or having an existential crisis?" "Both," I muttered. When I got home, Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I sat down next to her, trying to act normal. "What are you looking at?" I asked, glancing over her shoulder. "Just TikToks," she said, holding the screen up so I could see some guy doing an overly complicated dance. I nodded, pretending to care, but my mind was somewhere else. "Hey, Em," I said, trying to sound casual. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," she said, not looking up. "That message last night. The one with the picture of the kid. Who sent it?" She froze, just for a second. "I told you, it's nothing." "Right," I said, leaning back. "You keep saying that, but it doesn't feel like nothing." Emily finally looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Why are you still on this?" "Because it's weird," I said, throwing up my hands. "Come on, Em. You have to admit, a random message about a kid isn't exactly normal." She sighed, setting her phone down. "Alex, I don't know how else to say this, it's not what you think. Just drop it, okay?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm not dropping it. I need to know. Who's the kid? Who's JL?" Her eyes widened. "You went through my phone?" I paused, caught. "That's not the point." "It's absolutely the point," she snapped, standing up. "You invaded my privacy, Alex. Do you even hear yourself right now?" "Emily," I said, standing too. "I wouldn't have needed to if you'd just been honest with me." She glared at me, her hands clenched into fists. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then explain it to me." I shouted. "Because right now, all I know is that you're lying to me. And if you don't start telling me the truth, I don't know if I can do this anymore." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Emily's face softened, just for a moment. "It's not what you think," she said quietly. "But I can't talk about it." "Not yet." "Why not?" I asked, my voice cracking. "What are you so afraid of?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed her coat and walked out the door, leaving me standing there with more questions than ever. If there's one thing I've learned about myself, it's that I can't let things go. Some people can brush off weird moments and pretend everything's fine, but not me. I'm the guy who Googles weird noise in engine at 3 a.m. instead of taking the car to a mechanic. So when Emily walked out that door, I didn't just let it slide. I sat there for a while, staring at the door, wondering where she went. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Did she go meet JL? Was she coming back? Or was this her way of leaving without saying it outright? I wasn't about to sit around waiting for answers to magically appear, so I did what any slightly unhinged boyfriend would do. I decided to find JL myself. It started with her phone. I know, it was already bad enough that I snooped the first time. But now I had justification, right? Emily wasn't giving me answers, so I had to get them myself. I grabbed her laptop from the desk, hoping she'd left it logged into something useful. And there it was, her email. Unlocked. Most of it was boring, work emails, shipping confirmations, a newsletter about yoga retreats. But then I found an email from the same unknown address I'd seen in her messages, JL, as I'd started calling him. The subject line was simple, "We need to talk." I clicked it before I could second-guess myself. The email wasn't long, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. Emily, we can't keep avoiding this. You promised me we'd handle it together, but now it feels like you're just running away. She deserves to know the truth, and so does Alex. Call me. The truth. The truth about what? Before I could read it a second time, I heard the sound of keys in the door. I panicked, slamming the laptop shut and pretending to read something on my phone. Emily walked in, looking tired but calm. Too calm, considering the bombshell I'd just uncovered. "Hey," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound normal. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said, shrugging. "Just needed some air." Air. Right. Because that's what you do when life's great and nothing's falling apart. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something held me back. Maybe it was the way she avoided my eyes, or the way she moved around the room like she was trying to keep busy. For the first time, I realized that whatever she was hiding wasn't just about me, it was eating at her, too. The next day, I did something even stupider than breaking into her email. I called JL. I found his number in her messages and stared at it for a long time, my thumb hovering over the call button. Part of me thought, what are you doing? You don't even know who this guy is. But the other part of me, the one that needed answers, hit dial anyway. It rang twice before he picked up. Hello? His voice was deep, confident. Too confident. Hi, I said, my voice shaking slightly. This is Alex. Emily's boyfriend. There was a pause. Okay, he said slowly. Why are you calling me? I think you know why, I said, trying to sound firm but probably coming off like an amateur interrogator. I saw your messages. I know there's something going on. I just want the truth. Another pause. Then, with an edge in his voice, he said, this isn't how I wanted you to find out. Find out what? I demanded, my heart pounding. She didn't tell you, he asked, almost incredulous. Wow. Classic Emily. I gripped the phone tighter. Tell me what? There was a long sigh on the other end of the line. It's not my place to say, he said finally. But you're right, there's something she's been hiding. You need to talk to her, Alex. This isn't something I can explain over the phone. Why not? I snapped. You seem pretty involved in all of this. Who are you? What's your connection to her? He hesitated, and for a moment, I thought he might actually say it. But instead, he said, ask her. She owes you that much. Before I could push further, he hung up. That night, I didn't say anything to Emily. I wanted to, but the words felt stuck in my throat. Instead, I watched her from across the room, studying every movement, every glance. Who was she, really? The woman I thought I knew, or someone else entirely? When she finally looked at me, she smiled, soft, almost apologetic. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I said, forcing a smile of my own. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. They say the truth hurts, but I wasn't prepared for just how much. If I thought the lies were bad, the truth was about to knock the wind out of me and leave me questioning every choice I'd ever made. The day after my conversation with JL, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront Emily. No more games, no more breadcrumbs. It was time for answers. That evening, she was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. It was such a normal scene, almost domestic, and for a second I wondered if I was about to ruin everything. But then I remembered the photo. The message. The phone call. Whatever we had wasn't real, not until I knew the truth. "Emily," I said, leaning against the counter. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. She glanced up, her knife pausing mid-chop. "What's up?" I folded my arms, trying to keep my composure. "We need to talk." Her shoulders tensed, and I saw her grip the knife a little tighter. "About what?" "About JL," I said. "And the little girl in that photo." Her face paled, and for a moment, I thought she might drop the knife. Instead, she set it down carefully and turned to face me. "Alex, I told you." "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't tell me it's nothing." "I talked to him, Emily. I called him." Her eyes widened in shock, and then narrowed in anger. "You what?" "I called him," I repeated. "And you know what he said?" "He said this isn't how I was supposed to find out." "So tell me, Emily, what was I supposed to find out?" She stared at me, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. For a long time, she didn't say anything, and I thought she might actually walk out again. But then she let out a shaky sigh and said, "Fine. You want the truth? Here it is." We sat on the couch, the tension between us so thick you could cut it with that damn kitchen knife. Emily avoided my gaze as she spoke, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Her name is Lily," she said quietly. "She's 5. And, she's my daughter." It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Your daughter?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily nodded, still not looking at me. "Yes." I leaned back, trying to process the words. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know how," she said, her voice trembling. "When we met, it was casual. I didn't think it would get serious. And then it did, and I panicked. I didn't know how to tell you without scaring you away." "So you just didn't?" I asked, my voice rising. "You let me believe this whole time that I knew you, that we had a real relationship, and you were hiding something like this?" "I wasn't hiding her," Emily said defensively. "I just wasn't ready to bring her into this yet. Into us." "And JL?" I demanded. "Who is he?" "Her father?" She nodded, and for the first time, her eyes met mine. "Yes. But it's not what you think. He's not in the picture, not really. We broke up before Lily was born. He only started reaching out again recently, and that's why," she trailed off, her voice breaking. "That's why he's pushing you to tell me," I finished for her. She nodded again, tears welling in her eyes. "I was going to. I swear I was. But I didn't know how to start." I got up and paced the room, my mind racing. 5 years. She had a child for 5 years, and I'd been in her life for almost 2 of them, completely oblivious. "Do you have any idea how this feels?" I asked, my voice shaking. "To find out like this? To know that you've been lying to me every single day?" "I wasn't lying," she said desperately. I wasn't ready to share that part of my life yet." "Not ready?" I snapped, turning to face her. You don't get to make that call, Emily. You don't get to decide what I can or can't handle without even giving me the chance. I know, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I screwed up, okay? I know I did. But I love you, Alex. I didn't want to lose you. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to believe her, to forgive her, but the betrayal was too fresh, too raw. I need some time, I said finally, my voice hollow. Emily nodded, wiping her tears. Take all the time you need, she said quietly. But please, Alex, don't hate me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door, leaving her and her secrets behind. Here's the thing about the truth, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't make the pain go away or rebuild the trust that's been broken. It just leaves you standing there, staring at the wreckage, wondering if there's anything left worth saving. Time is supposed to heal all wounds, right? What they don't tell you is that time also gives you space to overthink, to replay every moment and wonder what else was a lie. I stayed away from Emily for days. At first, I told myself I just needed to clear my head, to figure out if I could even handle being with someone who'd hidden something this big. But the truth? I was avoiding her because I didn't want to face the possibility that I couldn't forgive her. On the third day, my phone buzzed. It was JL. We need to meet. There's more you should know. I stared at the screen for a long time, debating whether to reply. He was part of the problem, wasn't he? He was the guy Emily used to love, the father of the kid she'd hidden from me. Why the hell would I want to hear anything he had to say? And yet, I texted him back. When and where? We met at a coffee shop in town, the kind of place with overpriced lattes and bad indie music playing in the background. JL was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner with a coffee in front of him. He stood when he saw me, offering a handshake I didn't take. Alex, he said, nodding. Thanks for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries, I said, sliding into the chair across from him. What do you want? He sighed, leaning forward. Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just think you deserve the full story. Oh, the full story? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Great. Can't wait to hear what else Emily forgot to mention. JL flinched slightly but pressed on. Emily told me she finally talked to you. About Lily. She did, I said flatly. And how are you handling it? He asked, like we were old friends. I stared at him, my hands curling into fists under the table. Don't act like you care how I'm handling it. Just say whatever it is you came here to say. He sighed again, rubbing the back of his neck. All right. Look, Emily's a good person. She loves Lily more than anything, and she's tried so hard to give her a good life. But she's complicated. She has a hard time letting people in. Yeah, I noticed, I said bitterly. I'm not excusing what she did, JL said quickly. But there's more to this than just her being scared to tell you about Lily. I raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? He hesitated, then said quietly, Emily didn't just keep Lily from you. She's been keeping you from Lily. For a moment, I didn't understand. What are you talking about? I've been pushing her to tell you for months, he said. Lily knows about you, Alex. Emily's been showing her pictures, telling her stories. She's been asking to meet you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What? JL nodded. Lily's been asking about you for a while now. Emily kept saying it wasn't the right time, that she didn't want to rush you into anything. But the truth is, Lily's already attached to the idea of you. I leaned back in my chair, my mind spinning. Lily knew about me. She'd been waiting to meet me. And Emily. Emily hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to her daughter, too. What kind of person does that? I muttered, more to myself than to JL. Someone who's scared, he said simply. Emily's not perfect, but she loves you. And she loves Lily. She's just trying to figure out how to make it all work. I stared at him, my anger simmering beneath the surface. Why are you telling me this? What do you get out of it? Nothing, he said, meeting my gaze. I just want what's best for Lily. And right now, I think that's you. When I got home, Emily was waiting for me. She stood as I walked in, her face pale and anxious. Where were you? She asked. Talking to JL, I said, watching her reaction. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. What did he say? He told me about Lily, I said. He told me she knows about me. That she's been waiting to meet me. Emily's shoulders slumped, and she looked down at the floor. I was going to tell you, she said quietly. I didn't know how. Stop saying that, I snapped, my frustration boiling over. You didn't know how? You could have just been honest, Emily. That's all it would have taken. I know, she whispered. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The silence was heavy, filled with all the things we weren't saying. Finally, I said, I don't know if I can do this. Her head shot up, her eyes wide and pleading. Alex, please. I need to think, I said, cutting her off. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. Because right now? I don't. Her face crumpled, but I didn't stay to watch. I walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind me, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. For the first time, I wasn't sure if love was enough. I don't know how long I sat in that bedroom, staring at the floor. Time blurred into nothingness, the weight of everything pressing down on me like I was carrying the entire world on my shoulders. Love isn't supposed to feel like this, is it? Like drowning in quicksand, the harder you try to make sense of it, the deeper you sink. Eventually, the muffled sound of Emily crying filtered through the door. It didn't spark the usual instinct to comfort her, though. I was too drained. Too confused. And, if I'm being honest, too angry. The next morning, the house felt eerily quiet. Emily's things were still there, her shoes by the door, her jacket draped over the chair, but she was gone. No note. No text. Just, gone. At first, I didn't care. I told myself I needed the space. This was her mess, and if she wanted to run away from it, fine. Let her. But as the hours dragged on, the silence got louder. By afternoon, I caved and grabbed my phone. Where are you? It took her an hour to respond. With Lily. Of course. Where else would she be? I didn't reply, but her message left a bitter taste in my mouth. I couldn't help picturing her sitting with her daughter, laughing, playing, like everything was fine. Like I didn't exist. That evening, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was JL. She's at the park. You should come. I stared at the message, torn. Was this really something I wanted to step into? Could I even face Emily right now, let alone her daughter? But before I could overthink it, my feet were moving. When I arrived at the park, the sun was low in the sky, casting everything in a warm golden glow. I spotted Emily sitting on a bench near the playground, her face a mix of exhaustion and sadness. And then I saw her. Lily. She was on the swings, her tiny legs pumping back and forth, her laughter ringing out like a melody. For a moment, I just stood there, watching her. She had Emily's eyes, bright, curious, full of life. Emily looked up and saw me. Her expression shifted from surprise to something I couldn't quite place. Relief, maybe. Or hope. She stood and walked over to me, her movements hesitant. Hi, she said softly. Hi, I replied, my voice rough. We stood there in silence for a moment, watching Lily. She knows you're here, Emily said finally. I told her a little about you. My chest tightened. What did you tell her? That you're someone special, she said, her voice breaking slightly. Someone I care about. I swallowed hard, my emotions a tangled mess. Emily, I don't even know what I'm doing here. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. I know. But she wanted to meet you. And I thought maybe you'd want to meet her too. Before I could talk myself out of it, I walked over to the swings. Lily saw me coming and stopped, her small hands gripping the chains tightly. Hi, I said, my voice softer than I expected. Hi, she replied, her eyes wide and curious. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she pointed at the swing next to her. Do you want to swing too? I smiled, despite myself. Sure. I sat down, the swing creaking under my weight, and started moving back and forth. Lily laughed, and it was the kind of pure, unfiltered sound that cuts through all the noise in your head. As we swung side by side, she started talking about her teddy bear, her favorite cartoon, and how she once climbed a tree and got stuck. It was so normal, so innocent, that I almost forgot why I'd been so angry. Almost. When the sun dipped below the horizon, and the air grew cooler, Emily came over to collect her. It's time to go, sweetheart, she said, brushing a strand of hair out of Lily's face. Okay, Mommy, Lily said, hopping off the swing. Then she turned to me and smiled. Bye, Alex. The way she said my name, like it wasn't strange or unfamiliar, made my chest ache. Bye, Lily, I said, watching as she took Emily's hand and skipped toward the parking lot. I sat on that swing long after they left, staring at the empty playground. The truth was, I didn't know if I could forgive Emily. I didn't know if we could ever go back to the way things were. But for the first time, I realized something: this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Lily too. And maybe, just maybe, there was still something worth saving. 3 days after the park, Emily called me. Her voice was calm, steady, a sharp contrast to the chaos we'd been swimming in for weeks. Alex, she said, can we meet? I think we need to talk, really talk this time. I agreed, but not because I knew what I wanted to say. I went because I needed closure, one way or another. We met at a small cafe, the kind with faded red booths and a jukebox in the corner that no one ever used. Emily was already there when I arrived, nursing a cup of coffee and staring out the window. She looked up as I slid into the booth across from her, her expression cautious but determined. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded, saying nothing, waiting for her to speak. She took a deep breath. I owe you an apology, Alex. A real one. I shouldn't have kept Lily a secret. I thought I was protecting her, but really, I was just being a coward. Her words were a blunt, honest admission, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I didn't just hurt you, she continued. I hurt her too. She's been asking about you for months, and I kept putting her off because I was scared. Scared of what you'd think. Scared you'd leave. I leaned back in my seat, my arms crossed. Emily, it's not just about Lily. It's about trust. How do I know you won't hide something else from me in the future? Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. You don't, she said quietly. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. All I can promise is that I'll try to be better. For you. For Lily. Because I don't want to lose you, Alex. Her vulnerability caught me off guard. This wasn't the polished, composed Emily I'd fallen for. This was someone raw, someone real. For a while, we just sat there, the weight of everything between us pressing down like a heavy fog. And then, finally, I spoke. You're right, I said. You made a mistake. A big one. But I can't pretend I'm perfect either. I've made my share of bad decisions this past week. She smiled faintly. Calling JL? Among other things, I admitted. Her laugh was soft, a fragile thing. He told me you were direct. Yeah, well, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. I wasn't exactly polite. We both chuckled, the first genuine moment of levity we'd shared in weeks. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Look, Emily, I don't know where we go from here. I don't even know if this can work. But I know I care about you. And I care about Lily, even if I don't really know her yet. Her eyes widened slightly, a spark of hope flickering in their depths. You do? Yeah, I said, my voice soft. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm willing to try. If you are. Her smile was small but genuine. I am. We didn't solve everything that day. Some things, I knew, would take time, rebuilding trust, figuring out how to fit into Lily's life, untangling the mess we'd made. But as we left the cafe and walked out into the crisp evening air, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of possibility. For the first time, it felt like we weren't just trying to fix what was broken. We were building something new. And maybe, just maybe, it would be worth it. Subscribe to never miss a new story and discover even more captivating tales.